Hello. Quick preface, this video is not gonna go over each individual change in these patch notes. This is not a TLDR or a summary of like what's good, what's bad. This is mostly just my perspective on the balance change as a whole, the direction that they're going with the game, and honestly the future of the game. Um, First, I should say what their intent in this patch was and whether or not they succeeded. Um, Personally, I think their intent was to bring our characters like down a notch because they're overperforming, beyond their expectations on um, what a character should be in preseason or season one, and a lot of that has to do with these broken skills like Bone Spear and that Stagger Blizzard Sword build and Bursting Venoms Rogue and that Poison Shred Druid. Like all these builds are like trivializing their content in like a minute, less than 2 minutes, stuff like that. So their intent was to nerf these builds, but they couldn't do that because rogues are still killing Uber Lilith, skipping all the mechanics in like 2 minutes. Bone Necros killing Uber Lilith in like 2 minutes and skipping all the mechanics in phase two. Poison Shred Druid 81 seconds. Like these broken skills that are trivializing the content and that are so far ahead of the shit skills. They are still so far ahead of the shit skills, and now the shit skills are even shittier because they nerfed everyone's CDR and stats and stuff. So all these builds that are taking like 30 seconds to a minute to kill Uber Lilith are now taking 1 or 2 minutes. You know, they're taking 2 minutes to kill the boss. But the other builds that were like more balanced, that were taking like 8 to 10 minutes, that like they're now going to take like 15 plus minutes, like easily. So yeah, they basically like they just OP stuff is still OP. Like you're gonna still be playing the same shit probably. So it's kind of they failed on the bringing these skills down to earth. They might go back and nerf it again. But what that basically told me is that like they don't really test like these changes, and they honestly don't know what's wrong with the game. And you can see that more on like their buffs on skills. Like I'm gonna go over the barb ones because I play barb, and like these barb changes, like they don't make any sense. Like they have no idea like why they no one takes these skills, and their buffs like don't solve the fundamental issues of these aspects and these skills. Like what is this? Lucky hit chance to proc this went from 40 to 50 to 50 to 60. So they probably have metrics like for their game that shows like what percentage of barbarians are taking what aspect, and they probably see, oh, less than 0.01% of players are using whatever this shit aspect is. What can we do to change this to make it better? And they go into their code and they're like, oh shit, we can change 40 to 50 to 50 to 60. Yeah, that's gonna make it better now. It's gonna be fucking, people are gonna use it. But like, do they even know what's wrong with this aspect and why no one takes it? Like, if they played the game, they would know that this doesn't scale with anything. This whirlwind that the ancient does doesn't scale with your vulnerable, doesn't scale with your crit chance or crit damage. Like your whirlwind does like a million, and your these guys do like a 10k whirlwind. Like it procking more often isn't gonna do anything because it doesn't scale. Like do they? I don't even think they know that it doesn't scale. Otherwise, like what? The bigger change would have been like, oh, this now the ancients now scale with your stats. Like that would have been the good buff, but like this doesn't solve the issue with this. A lot of these don't solve the issues with these skills and aspects. Like double swing's problem wasn't that its vulnerable duration was from what is it was low. That wasn't the issue. The issue is just the ability just does no fucking damage. Like a lot of these changes just don't make any sense. A lot of the things in this game just don't make any fucking sense, and it like kind of tells me that they don't even play the game, or like they have no idea how the mechanics in their game like interact and work. Because like look at an item like Gores. It's a whirlwind glove. Whirlwind doesn't even scale with attack speed. Why has it got attack speed on it? Like it just make this so many of these changes don't make sense. But like these patch notes are littered with these changes that don't change the fundamental issues with these aspects and these abilities. Like makes no sense. But like yeah, other stuff that makes no sense is it's like the pinnacle. Or is it? They started shifting our, our defensive powers into offense. We have seen that skillful players are frequently slaughtering monsters many levels above their own. We want to support this, but the current situation is beyond what we believe is correct for the long-term health of the game. I agree, there are a lot of broken builds out there that are trivializing the hardest content in the game and needed to be nerfed. I wholeheartedly agree. They are one-shotting these bosses. That is not good. To chase these goals, we are shifting power to many offensive affixes from defensive affixes. Wait, what? These builds are one-shotting and trivializing these bosses, and so their change or their goal is to make it so that we deal more damage, but also take more damage because they're shifting the values from your defense and they're moving it into offense. We know this will make our endgame content more deadly, particularly for those chasing our pinnacle boss. What video are they watching where they think that we need to do more damage at the same time take more damage because we have less like do they watch these videos and like see how they interact with these bosses? Like I can guarantee you 90% of these skills, like, look at this, like what is that damage? But a lot of these skills or builds, they get one shot. Like 90% of these builds just get one shot. So why are they shifting from defense to more up? What? It just makes no sense, man. It just makes no sense. Like, where are they getting the idea that we need to be squishier? Even stuff like this makes no fucking sense. Like, I get the idea behind it. It's like vulnerable is too strong and crit is too strong because like everyone's getting it, but the reason why it's so strong is because it's multiplicative. It's a completely different multiplier. You lowering the amount of like stats that we get, amount of vulnerable stats that we get from our gear isn't going to solve the issue of it being a different multiplier. What this is probably going to end up doing, and this is the case for my character, is it's going to make like crit damage more valuable. It's going to make vulnerable damage more valuable. It's doing the exact opposite of what they want because they have no like clue like what they're doing. Like my character, my barb, before the changes had like 600 crit damage or some stupid like absurd number. It was actually so high that the generic additive damage boost, like core damage, fizz damage, damage to close, those are all additive to each other. Those were actually better than crit damage because I had so much crit damage. But what this change basically did is I have less total crit damage now, so it makes crit damage more valuable. So now I want more crit damage. Like that's what the change ended up doing. Like their goal was to make crit damage not as appealing, but what it actually made me do, what it actually did is it made it more appealing. Like it's so bizarre. Like the solution would just to be, well, they could just raise these like even higher. Like this isn't enough, or they can make it so that stuff like this is a separate multiplier, right? So maybe instead of going fire damage, or sorry, vulnerable damage, I can go fire damage instead, like stuff like that. but obviously they have to tune the numbers a bit. But like this isn't the solution. Like, just makes no sense, man. Like a lot of the stuff, like I just don't think they know like how their game works. Like with stuff like this, like they just have no clue. And like think about the broken builds in this game. Like half of them are from dots. Like they have absolutely no clue how to balance dots. Like the first two broken builds in the game, well, minus the whirlwind one that got patched, was from Rend and Rupture. They had to disable Berserk Ripping because Rend and Rupture was doing like 100 million plus to like a billions of damage, and then a second one actually cropped up in like a week ago, which they fixed. They just flat out just destroyed it. I think it was still Berserk Ripping. Yeah, it was Berserk Ripping with like this stuff. So there were two bleed builds that got basically they were just basically like disabled because they have no idea how to balance like dots. But then you still have like bursting venoms rogue and shred druid, poison shred druid. Like they like dots are just out of control in this game because they have no fucking clue how they work. And it is just so sad. And yeah, like it just doesn't feel good to like this whole patch notes was just all basically nerfs, right? And that just even though they needed to happen, like Bone Spear needed to be nerfed, Poison Shred Druid needed to be nerfed, the Bursting Venoms Rogue, which actually didn't get nerfed, like that stuff needed to get nerfed, but it wasn't enough, obviously. Um, but they're still fucking broken. Like it makes no sense. And they didn't buff anything to it doesn't feel good to just get all nerfs, right? But they needed to. But maybe they shouldn't have released the game in such a like bug state where you have like dozens of skills that are absurdly broken and overpowered, right? Like think about how did the infinite stacking whirlwind. This was the first skill that was like Edge Masters was disabled. This was like the first thing that was disabled because it was out of control. Like how did that make it out of the beta? Like the closed beta, the NDA'd one where no one was like hardly anyone was in it. Like every whirlwind character should have been taking Edge Masters and should have noticed that hey, whirlwind was stacking infinitely. Like how did that infinitely scaling Edge Masters interaction with whirlwind make it out of the beta? How? But yeah, man, stuff like that just lets you know that the devs are just like they just don't know what they're doing. They don't know that half of their abilities are infinitely scaling. They don't know that they don't scale off your like some of them don't even scale off your stats or scaling from your stats like 2 times, 3 times, 4 times infinitely. Like they just fucking they're yeah, they're clueless, man. It just sucks. But yeah. Even stuff like what is it, resistances? I think they did something where they like added like resistance can now appear on shields. But like resistances fucking suck because of the way you're penalized and like world tiers and how it's only half value because for some reason armor gives half of your like elemental resistance. Like what? Like I don't understand. Like it's very clear to me that these devs are not very good. Like I'm sorry if that's blunt and like mean, but they're just like not very good. They're creating these new like they're reinventing the wheel when they have no business in reinventing the wheel. Like why do they have their own like resistance system? Like what was wrong with D2's resistance system, which PoE copied? Like what was wrong with that? Like why did they have to make their own resist? Like it makes no sense, man. It just makes no fucking sense. But yeah, this basically what this patch notes showed me was that the devs just don't know what's wrong with their game and they don't know how to fix it. And yeah, it might be like season 12 they'll figure it out or some shit. But right now the devs are just they're a bunch of noobs. I don't know what else to say, man. Like that may sound rude, but they don't know. They either don't play the game, they don't test their changes, or they just lack foresight and they don't look at things from more perspective. Like, I don't know, man. They don't look at it enough from different perspectives. Like, oh, we introduced unique A, and unique A synergizes with ability 1, but they don't look far ahead enough to see that ability number 7 like abuses the shit out of this new unique and like does a billion damage. Like, they just lack foresight and they just lack, you know, vision. I don't know. But yeah, basically my hope for this game has been destroyed with this patch.